Hello and welcome. Have you ever felt like you are fighting a non-stop, completely exhausting war against reality itself? Trying to manage your partner's habits, your friends' choices, your family's opinions, even the traffic. It feels like if you just stop pushing and controlling and worrying for one single second, your entire world is just going to fall apart. Well, what if I told you the secret to winning isn't to fight harder, but to just stop fighting altogether? Okay, let's get into this.
So this comes from the creator of this very theory, Mel Robbins. And for years, she lived inside this exact quote. She was absolutely convinced that her constant state of high alert, her need to control every single outcome and manage every person in her life, that was the engine of her success. She genuinely believed that if she ever let her guard down, even for a moment, everything she'd built would just crumble to dust.
So, does that sound even a little bit familiar to you? Are you constantly at war with reality? I mean, fighting with your partner because they load the dishwasher the wrong way, or mentally arguing with friends who are making choices you just wouldn't make. Feeling that knot in your stomach because your kids aren't following the exact life path you had in your head for them. I mean, who hasn't been there, right? This battle is unwinnable, and it is the single biggest drain on our energy.
But what if there was a way out of that? A simple, almost laughably simple, two-word key that can unlock this mental prison you've kind of built for yourself. And no, this isn't some complex psychological practice that takes months to learn. It's a theory that was born from a moment of pure desperation in Mel Robbins' own kitchen when she was at the absolute end of her rope.
That's it. Those are the two words. Let them. The moment Mel said this to herself, she said she felt this immediate physical and emotional release, like she just dropped a 100-pound backpack she didn't even realize she was carrying. It was this deep, body-wide sigh of relief. And hey, if you've ever felt that weight, do me a huge favor and just smash that like and subscribe button, because what's coming next will honestly change everything for you.
Okay, but let's be crystal clear about what this means, because this right here is a really critical distinction. Let them is not about giving up. It's not weakness, it's not apathy. See, giving up is powerlessness. It's letting other people's actions dictate your emotional state. Let them, on the other hand, is the ultimate act of reclaiming your power. It's about radically accepting reality so you can finally control the only thing you were ever meant to control, yourself.
And get this isn't just some nice-sounding mantra you repeat to yourself. This is a legitimate neurological hack. It's a tool that works on a biological level to fundamentally rewire your brain's default reaction to stress and conflict. So let's pop the hood for a second and see the incredible way this actually works inside your brain.
So where does all this anxiety actually come from? Well, it all lives in something we can call the anxiety gap. All of our stress, our frustration, our worry, it exists in that space between what is actually happening, that's reality, and what we think should be happening. That's our expectations. Our desperate attempts to control people are really just these failed, exhausting attempts to violently bend reality to our will.
And look at what's happening on a biological level here. When you try to control something you can't, you activate your amygdala. That's your brain's primal fear and threat detection center. It plunges you straight into a state of fight or flight. You're physically on guard, ready for a threat. But when you say, let them, it acts as a pattern interrupt. It's a signal to your brain that says, hey, there's no mortal danger here, shifting activity from that panicked amygdala to the calm, logical prefrontal cortex. You want to know the most incredible part, though? The speed. This isn't something that takes weeks of meditation to master. You can use this tool in less than a single second. In the moment you feel that urge to control, that tension rising up in your chest, you can just internally say, let them, and literally feel the stress hormone, cortisol, begin to drain from your body. It is that fast, and it is that powerful.
Okay, so the science is fascinating, right? But the real magic happens when we start applying this to the messy, complicated situations of our actual everyday lives. This is where the theory stops being just an idea and becomes a real-life superpower. So let's look at how this actually works. Let's start with a classic, and yeah, a painful one. You open up social media and you see it. A group of your close friends all out together having an amazing time at a party. And you weren't invited. The immediate reaction is that gut punch of hurt, of rejection, and then comes the storm of negative self-talk. What's wrong with me? They must not like me anymore.
So instead of spinning out, you apply the theory. Let them not invite you. Now, this doesn't mean you won't feel a sting of disappointment, of course not. It means you stop the mental drama you create around the fact. It lets you see the reality of the situation more clearly. Maybe the friendship is changing, maybe it was just an oversight, and it saves your precious energy for the people who are genuinely excited to have you.
Oh boy, and here's one I think we can all relate to.
You know, the family gathering where a relative makes that sideways comment about your career, or your partner, or your parenting style, or the fact that you're still single. The default response? To launch into this endless, exhausting justification of your entire life.
This is so liberating. Let them be wrong about you. When you do this, you stop handing them the gavel and appointing them the judge of your life. You realize their opinion is based on their life, their fears, and their mental filter. It has absolutely nothing to do with your reality. You do not need their approval to validate your own path.
Now let's talk relationships. We have all been there, right? Trying to change something small about our partner, whether it's leaving clothes on the floor or the way they tell a story. This micromanaging of the person you love just creates this constant, draining cycle of nagging, resentment, and resistance.
Let them be themselves. Now, to be absolutely clear, this is not about tolerating disrespect or abuse, not at all. This is about giving up the unwinnable, full-time job of trying to fix another adult. When you stop trying to manage them, you create space for them to see the natural consequences of their own actions. The mess becomes their problem to solve, not yours to manage.
And this isn't just for your personal life. Think about work for a second. Picture this. You have a team member who consistently drops the ball. Your instinct is to rescue the project, right? To work late, pick up their slack, because you're terrified of the whole thing failing. You're controlling the outcome to prevent a negative consequence.
Let them face the consequences. By constantly saving them, you're actually enabling a toxic situation. You are preventing the system, your manager, the company, from seeing the reality of the problem. The only way true, lasting change happens is when you step back and allow the natural consequences to happen. Let them be held accountable for their own work.
When you really think about it, this need to control is a prison we build for ourselves, brick by painful brick. The let them theory, well, that's the key. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What part of your life is causing you the most stress right now? And what prison will you unlock by finally deciding to just let them? Don't go anywhere. The rest of the powerful insights are coming right up.
All right, let's just jump right into this, because this quote from Mel Robbins, it absolutely nails one of the biggest, most invisible energy drains in our lives. I mean, just think about it for a second. How much of your brain power, your emotional energy, have you spent just this week worrying about what someone else thinks? Replaying a conversation, wondering if you came off the wrong way, stressing out about how someone might read into a text message. It's like you've hired yourself for a full-time, unpaid job as the PR manager for your own life, and it is exhausting. And what Robbins is saying here is that it's not just tiring, it's completely pointless. But her solution, it's so simple, it almost feels radical. And trust me, when you get this, it is so freeing. Just let them misunderstand you.
So why is this job so exhausting and, well, impossible? Because what you're trying to do is edit a story that you don't even own. The version of you that lives inside someone else's head, that's their creation. It's their story, not yours. You don't get final cut. Think about it like this. You give them the raw footage. That's your actions, your words, what you do. But they are the director, the editor, and the audience for the movie that they then create in their own mind. And that movie gets projected through a lens that's been shaped and colored by their entire life. Their own hangups, their past heartbreaks, their insecurities. So let's say you get a promotion at work. In your head, the story is, wow, all my hard work finally paid off. But in a coworker's head, maybe their story, through their filter of insecurity, is, oh, they just got lucky, or they must be a total suck-up. You can't control that narrative. You're basically fighting a battle over a piece of land that was never, ever yours to begin with. And this right here, this is the core of what Mel Robbins calls the let them theory. It's all about drawing a really clear, non-negotiable line in the sand. I want you to picture it like a property line between two houses. Okay, on your side of the fence, that's your domain. You're responsible for your behavior, your actions, your words, your intentions. You own that, 100%. You're in charge of it. You're accountable for it. But the second those words or actions cross over the fence into their yard, your responsibility ends, period. How they interpret what you did, how they react to it, the past traumas that might make them hear your words in a certain way, their jealousies that might twist your good intentions, all of that stuff is happening on their property. You are not responsible for how they decorate their mental lawn, and trying to jump the fence to manage it for them is not only impossible, it's basically trespassing on their own mind. And once you really, truly get that separation, it changes everything.
Now let's talk about how this theory plays out with a habit that so many of us have, and we might not even notice it. It's called over-explaining. You know the drill. Why are you leaving that job? Why did you buy that car? Why aren't you married yet? Every single time you launch into this long-winded defense, this detailed justification for a personal choice, you're doing something more than just sharing info. On a subconscious level, you are begging for their approval. You're sending out a little signal that says, hey, I'm not totally sure about this myself, so I really need you to sign off on it. Please validate my decision so I can feel okay about it. You're literally taking your own personal power, your autonomy, and just handing it right over to them, asking for their permission to live your own life. But this is where the magic really kicks in. When you truly get the let them theory, you give yourself permission to just be silent. Let them think you're making a mistake by leaving your quote-unquote safe job. Let them be confused about why you're still single. Let them gossip. Because your silence isn't weak. It's not an empty space where an excuse should be. No, it becomes this powerful, active statement of your own inner certainty. It's this quiet, unshakable message that says, I trust myself, I am good with this decision, and I do not require your approval to move forward. That kind of calm, grounded confidence, it speaks way louder than any frantic justification ever. So to really understand why their story about you is so different from your reality, Mel Robbins uses this amazing analogy. She calls it the dirty filter theory. I want you to really picture this. Imagine that every single person you know is walking around wearing a unique pair of glasses. But the lenses on these glasses, they're not clean. They're all smudged up and smeared with the gunk of their entire life experience, right? There's a smudge from a bad breakup they had 10 years ago, a greasy fingerprint from a super critical parent, a distortion from a dream they never chased. So when they look at you, it's physically impossible for them to see the real, objective you. They can only see the version of you that makes it through their own unique, personal, and very dirty filter. And boom, this quote right here is the punchline that will set you free. Think about it. If someone sees your confidence and calls it arrogance, well, maybe it's because their filter is all smudged up with a lifetime of being told not to shine too bright. If they see you setting a boundary and call you selfish, maybe their lens is just warped from a long history of people-pleasing. The judgment they're throwing at you, it's almost never about you. It's a self-portrait. It's a reflection of what's on their glasses, not what's on your face. So you have to stop running around trying to frantically wash your face for them. You could be sparkling clean, but it won't make a single bit of difference if their glasses are caked in mud. The responsibility for them to see clearly isn't on you. It's on them to do the work and clean their own darn glasses. And to see just how this works in the real world, check out this amazing example Robbins shares. It's about a guy with a super prestigious, high-paying job in banking. Total success story, right? Well, one day, he decides to walk away from all of it to chase his real dream, becoming an artist. And you can just imagine the fallout. His family freaked out, his friends thought he was having a total breakdown, that he was throwing his life away, being lazy, becoming a failure. And for months, he burned so much energy trying to defend himself, trying to explain his vision, justify his passion, prove he was serious. It was totally draining, and nobody was getting it. And then finally, he has this breakthrough. He decides to just apply the theory. He says, you know what? Okay, let them. Let them think I'm a failure. Let them be wrong about me. And the moment he stopped explaining, it was like a dam just broke. All of that energy he'd been wasting on defense came flooding back to him. He poured every single ounce of it into his art, and eventually he opened his very first and very successful art gallery. And that story just perfectly ties it all together, doesn't it? Here's the bottom line. You have a limited amount of energy every single day. You can either spend that energy trying to win arguments and manage other people's opinions of you, or you can invest that energy in building your own life. Just stop trying to convince the critics. Stop over-explaining to the doubters. Take all that energy that you're going to save from not worrying, not justifying, not trying to clean their dirty filters, and pour it into your actions, into your goals, into your craft. Because at the end of the day, your results will always speak louder than your words. Your success becomes the only explanation you will ever need. It becomes the answer that silences all the noise for you. Don't go anywhere. The rest of these powerful insights are coming right up. Think about it for a second. How much of your daily energy is just gone? Spent trying to control things you simply can't. You know, your past mistakes, the choices of people you love, all the chaos in the news. Well, today, we're diving into a really powerful framework that promises to give you all that energy back. It's called the Let Them Theory, and we're going to break it down step by step. So where do we even begin? Well, the first step in letting others be is to let the one person we can never, ever escape be, and that's our past self. right? We spend so much time trying to rewrite history in our heads, but this quote just nails it. All that does is guarantee we crash in the present. The theory starts by just letting your past have happened. All right, so our first stop on this journey is making peace with who we used to be. And look, this isn't just about feeling better. It's about reclaiming the enormous amount of mental energy we waste on a past that is locked, done, and cannot be changed. At the heart of this is a really simple idea. Self-forgiveness is basically a matter of fairness. Just imagine judging your 20-year-old self who was making decisions with like zero information and a ton of uncertainty with the hard-won wisdom you have now at 40. It's a totally unfair fight. The person who made that decision you regret didn't know what you know today. They were doing the best they could with what they had. The let them theory asks you to just let that version of you have made that mistake. So what do you do when your brain gets stuck in that painful loop of if only? Oh, you know the one I'm talking about. It plays the same scene over and over and over. You're just looking for a different ending that's never going to come. How do you actually break that cycle? Well, there's a surprisingly simple and powerful tool for this. It's called the period protocol, and it's a super simple 3-step process. First, the second that regretful thought pops into your head, I want you to visualize a giant final period, just like that. Done. Second, you declare that it's over. You literally say to yourself, that happened, period. Let it have happened. Now, this isn't about liking it. It's just about acknowledging reality. Finally, and this is the most crucial part, you pivot. You immediately ask your brain, what is within my control right now? That simple question switches your entire nervous system from being stuck in the past to engaging with the present. It's a powerful pattern interrupt for regret. Okay, so we've started to make peace with our past. Now let's turn our attention outward. We're moving from our internal world to our relationships, where so much of our energy gets drained trying to manage and fix and save the people around us. Oh man, this is such a crucial distinction. Helping is when someone is actively trying and you offer support. Saving, that's when you're working harder on their life than they are. When you're constantly saving someone from the consequences of their actions, paying their bills, fixing their mistakes, you're not actually helping. You're stealing the very lesson that life is trying to teach them. And this quote just brilliantly illustrates the toughest part of the theory. It is so painful to watch someone we love struggle. But sometimes hitting rock bottom is the only thing that gives someone the motivation to actually change. By constantly providing that soft cushion, we might be preventing them from ever finding their own strength to climb out. Let me ask you this. Are you in a relationship with a person, or are you in a relationship with their potential? This is what we call the renovation illusion. You see them as this fixer-upper project, and you fall in love with the blueprint of who they could be if they just changed a few things. The problem? You never actually see or accept the person who's standing right in front of you. So how do you break this illusion? You run a little experiment called the silent observer test. Here's how it works. First, you pick one relationship in your life that just feels exhausting. Second, for 1 week, you do nothing. You stop managing, you stop reminding, you stop fixing. You just watch. Third, you write down their actual behaviors, not what you think they mean, not their promises, but what they actually do. Finally, after a week of collecting this raw data, you ask yourself the really tough question. If they never, ever changed, would I want them in my life? The answer to that? That's your truth. All right, so we've looked at our past, we've looked at our relationships. Now let's zoom way out. How do we apply this theory to the big, overwhelming chaos of the world? The economy, the news, politics, all the stuff that feels completely out of our hands. You know that knot of anxiety you get in your stomach when you're scrolling through bad news? That's your brain's misguided attempt to gain control over something that is fundamentally uncontrollable. The let them theory here means let the world be chaotic. See, peace isn't found by trying to control the storm. It's found by learning how to captain your own ship within the storm. Now, it's so important to understand that this is not passive, hopeless surrender. This is active surrender. Passive surrender is just giving up, throwing your hands in the air. Active surrender is accepting reality so you can work with it. It means you stop wasting energy wishing it wasn't raining, and instead, you grab an umbrella and figure out how to get where you need to go. You radically accept the situation as it is, which, paradoxically, gives you the power to navigate it effectively. And when that feeling of worldly overwhelm hits, here's your emergency brake, the sensory anchor. It's a simple technique to pull your mind right out of the chaos. You just start by saying, let it be. Then you force your brain to engage with the immediate physical world. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can physically feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This literally pulls you out of anxious future thinking and anchors you in the safety of the present moment. It's a direct message to your nervous system saying, the world might be chaotic, but right here, right now, I am safe.
So we've applied this to our past, our people, and the world. Now let's bring it all together. How does this evolve from just a simple tool into a core philosophy for a more peaceful, more powerful way of living? I want you to think of your mental energy like a daily budget. For a lot of us, it looks kind of like this chart. A huge chunk, maybe 30%, goes to worrying about the past. Another 30% is spent trying to change other people. And yep, another 30% gets eaten up by stressing about the news. That leaves, what, a tiny 10% for our actual goals and dreams? Living the Let Them life is all about reallocating that budget. It's about taking back that 90% of wasted energy and investing in it what actually matters to you.
And this brings us to what might be the final frontier of letting go. We are so attached to our own image, right? The need to be seen as the good one, the smart one, the successful one. We try to control how others perceive us. The ultimate application of this theory is to let them be wrong about you. When you can let go of controlling even that, when you can allow a version of yourself to exist in someone else's mind that you don't agree with, that right there is true freedom.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do we make sure it actually sticks? How do we integrate this into our life so it becomes our default setting, not just something we remember when we're already totally stressed out?
Well, the key is to make it a conscious daily practice. Every single morning, before you start your day, just ask yourself this one simple question. Today, who or what will I allow to be exactly as they are, without my interference? By setting that intention right at the start of the day, you're priming your brain to look for opportunities to release control. It turns an abstract idea into a concrete daily action.
And ultimately, this is the beautiful paradox of the whole theory, isn't it? The act of releasing control over everyone and everything else is what finally unleashes you. You stop spending your life reacting and you start consciously creating. Wow, we have covered so much ground together. We started by letting our past selves be. Then we moved to letting others in our lives be who they are. And finally, we learned to let the world be chaotic. Thank you so much for coming on this journey. You now have the tools, the period protocol, the silent observer test, the sensory anchor to reclaim your energy and focus on what truly matters.
So I want to leave you with this question. What is the one thing you will let them do starting today? Is it a past mistake you're finally going to put a period on? A person you'll stop trying to save? Drop your answer in the comments below. I would love to see how you're putting this into practice. Let's make this real together.
That's all for this breakdown of the Let Them theory. Thank you for your focus and your energy today. Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.